Aloha and welcome to What's Bugging You, brought to you Hawaii's leader in pest control and the first company in Hawaii to earn the National Quality Pro certification, Sandwich Isle Pest Solutions. Now here's the host of the show, Mike Buck, and today's guest and owner of the company, Michael Botha.
Like I said, hey, what's bugging you? Well, listen, whatever it is, and there is something. If you live in paradise like we all do, believe me, something's bugging you. And one of the things that Michael Botha from Sandwich Isle Pest Solutions learned a long time ago when he came here to do his business is that, we are a constant source of recommendation and word of mouth. And that's why we do this show. This show is brought to you sort of in a public service. And if you've noticed, this is our second show in what we hope is going to be a long series. It's What's Bugging You. If you've noticed, the mites are out. And we're talking about Drywood termites. We got the biology of them, the prevention, the detection, the identification, and more important to each and every one of you out there is the treatment thereof. So with that, we say good day to Michael Botha, and we're going to get right into this because it's a big money deal. It's costing us millions and millions of dollars. Good morning, Mike. Yeah, same to you, Michael. And I don't know if people really understand how much real trouble there is attached to this economically. I know the university's done studies and there have been others. Multi-millions.
There was a study done at one point in Hawaii, and I believe the numbers were stated were $100 million per year in termite damage and treatment.
Yikes, yeah.
And in a small state like this with, 1.6 million?
It is unlikely that we can really get that to go away. But from what you've saying, the industry has responded to the point where the dollar value is unbelievable, but a lot of the previous damage is being, if not prevented, treated.
That's right. The important thing to think about, Mike, is we always mention it. There's only two types of termites, two types of homes, those with termites and those that are going to get them. Yeah. And so the good news is that there are so many things that homeowners can do today to protect their home from termites.
And that's why I like you guys, because, this is the business that you're in. So you would think that the quieter you are, the more calls you're going to get, the more business you're going to do. But you've actually helped people identify how to prevent a reinfestation. Let's talk a little bit about these termites themselves. What makes them, number one, eat wood, and number two, what makes them up, biologically? What do they consist of?
So basically, the important thing to consider is that we actually have multiple types of termites. We have 7 different species in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. Of those 7 species, there's only 2 that are of structural significance. And those termites are the West Indian Drywood termite. Okay. And then the Formosan subterranean termite.
In other words, one comes from the ground up into your house.
That's correct.
And the other, did they both swarm?
That's a great point to point out, is that they go through similar life cycles in that there's social insects. Mm-hmm. There's different classes of insect. One of those classes is called primary reproductors, and they're the winged alates or swarmers that you see flying towards your lights, for example, last night.
Right, last night, big swarm. I noticed.
So both subterranean termites, which is the group that Formosans belong to, and Drywood termites have swarms. And that's the primary way that the kings and queens get to meet, and they get to start new colonies.
Okay, now, I remember one of your guys years ago came out to my house on one of the monthly inspections for my Centricon treatment and said that there's a particular tree that had termites in it, and it's touching the house. So, that's one of the first things that I did was say, as much as I love the tree, it had to go because it was full of termites. You can tell sometimes, right?
Yeah, that had subterranean termites, Formosan termites. Yeah. And so the interesting thing is that subterranean termites, although they are ground termites that live in the ground, the particular species we have here, the Formosan termites, have developed such that they can fly and the swarmers can land on a house that has, say, water standing in the gutter.
Yeah, and there they are.
And they don't have to go back to the ground. They can get sufficient moisture from their environment because of that standing pool of water on the roof or damp wood, whatever it might be, that they don't have to go to the ground, and then they form what are called aerial nests. Oh, and so you have subterranean termites that actually live in your house. And then
aerial
go down.
termites.
Yeah.
Gee. Okay, so that being said, and does the 7 types make us unique, or are there a lot more types of termites in the world?
No, I think everywhere in the world you have quite a large number of termites. I don't think that's too unique, except that what is unique is that the Formosan termites are probably the most aggressive and most destructive, and that's what we got.
Does this go in cycles? I mean, a couple of years ago, I don't even remember seeing any swarm. And from what I understand now, this year, it's like a bumper crop. They're everywhere.
Yeah, Mike, we participate on the NPMA. There's a termite swarm forum, and basically companies from around the country mention anytime there's a swarm. Well, this is a national survey, and we just put in our third post today. There's no one else. Most companies don't even have one post for a swarm this year.
Yeah, I was going to say, first of all, in the timing on the mainland, it's still maybe a little bit too cool in some places.
Yeah,
right?
I think you're right. So in the south, it's still termites should be swarming right now. And in fact, New York City was 70 degrees yesterday, and someone had Drywood termite swarms yesterday in New York. Of
course, the bad news here is we have summer and almost summer, because I mean we literally have a perfect time for termites 365.
Termites in Hawaii are here year-round. What's noticeable, though, is during the summer months, it's the humidity, the combination of humidity greater than 70%, wind speed less than 2 miles per hour, and generally right after sundown is the time that coincides with the best possibility that termite swarmers will meet. And so all the termites in that geographic area identify those circumstances, and then they all swarm together. You know, we know about other programs that we do with Isle Pest Solutions about, say, mosquitoes, and they only travel so far from where they're born to where they die. What about termites? On a windy night, if there's a swarm, will they get blown far away and start a new colony somewhere? Yeah, that's a great point. They have fairly weak wings. They have 4 wings. Isoptera means 4 wings, and that's the Latin name for subterranean termites. And anyway, they have 4 wings that basically are just designed to get them off the ground, and then they flutter in the wind, more influenced by the wind than their strength of flying.
Oh, boy.
They can't fly against the wind. And when they land, they quickly either break off their wings themselves or they just fall off. And then that's the last time they'll use their wings.
You know, I know that everybody asks this. I mean, most of the time, you know, Sandwich Isle will get a call or somebody to visit sandwichisle.com and find out what they need to find out, or a neighbor will recommend it. But what about if somebody says, you know, I know it's just a matter of time. Is there anything I can do to prevent termites? So what can I do to maybe fortify my property? Is there anything that can be done?
Well, we're talking about the swarms. And one of the things you do want to do is to make sure that your house is not attractive to the swarms.
Okay, meaning?
So when the termites swarm, it's typically just after sundown, and they're attracted to light.
Oh, boy.
So the good thing to do is turn out your lights.
I was going to say, what about every single house in Hawaii that's got either a plasma or some kind of high-definition, light-emitting diode television set?
Or you could
with
call
like
it
a searchline, right?
You could call it a termite magnet.
Yeah, I was going to say. What about the old wives' tale if you put a bucket of water in front of your light? Because I remember when I was a kid in Aina, in front of the TV, you put a bowl of water with ice water, and stuff would fly into it and die.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, you could put anything that's reflective. So what's happening is lights are reflecting off the surface of the water, and it's a light source that they focus on. So then they focus on that, and they land in it, and they drown. But the better thing to do would be to turn out your lights in your house during the swarm. They only swarm for maybe 30 minutes.
Yeah, or go over to your mother-in-law's house and watch TV.
Yeah, do whatever you have to. So what I do is, like, we have a gate light. And so I turn the gate light on, I turn the house lights off, and all the termites kind of focus on the gate area, which I don't care about, and they keep away from the house. And so that's a good way of doing it, too.
Is there sometimes the reason to think that, depending on where you live, it might be to have a sacrificial altar somewhere that you give to the termites? In other words, something that's let them go over there and eat so long as they don't come in the house. Has that ever been done?
Your house is already a sacrificial altar.
Your whole structure. Yeah, but we don't want people to feel doom and gloom. We know that you go about doing the best job as anybody in identifying where the problem is and treating it properly. Let's talk a little bit about that. Assuming there's going to be half a dozen swarms this summer in your neighborhood, you're going to get infestation of some kind. So what are we going to do to identify? How can we identify, gee, there was a swarm 2 weeks ago, and look at this.
So that is a great point. So if you consider, later we should talk about the various different types of termite applications to remedy a drywood termite infestation. But the thing to consider is that there's none of them that prevents them.
Yeah.
So you can't do any type of treatment that's going to prevent termites for good. As long as they can fly in, you'd literally have to shoot them out of the sky to stop them, right? So they're always going to be there.
Remember before, and you know this because you've actually physically built a house. Before, on any job site in Hawaii, there used to be a guy, usually a laborer, and his job would be to dip the cut ends into a solution to termite it. And in those days, it didn't work. I mean, all of that stuff didn't work. But now I understand that most wood does come impregnated, and it is better. But is it should a homeowner relax? Well, I got new wood, so I don't have to worry. It's all the termite treated.
So, well, we found subterranean termites in borate-treated lumber. And so borate-treated lumber today, high-bore lumber, is probably the best solution you can get. And end cutting it with a high-bore solution is a good idea too, because what it basically does is it allows the boric acid molecule to move up into the wood, and that wood, if the termite eats it, it'll kill them in multiple different ways.
Because you would want where the termite enters, you want that to be the least tasteful for it. So it doesn't want to like there, I guess.
That's right, because most wood used today in construction is treated. So that means the outer surface of the wood is treated. But when you cut it to make it shorter during construction, then you expose a portion of the wood that has not been treated. And so that's the purpose of end cutting.
Would that be a good idea for a homeowner that's doing a remodel or having some built? Make sure that the contractor is aware that they are aware that they want to see that done.
Absolutely. I would definitely recommend that. I would end cut every single piece of wood you use in your house, and I would only use treated lumber because, like we mentioned earlier, when termites swarm, there's very little you can do to stop them from swarming. So you can turn out your lights, but the wind might blow some of them into your attic, and then now you've got some termites in your attic. So there are certain things that can be done, which are borate treatments are fantastic as a residual treatment that can protect you from new incoming termites.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, however, long before we go there, we have to know that when is it the time to pick up the phone and call 456-7716? I mean, they got to know when to call you. So what are some of the things that lay people, just regular folks, can sniff around and look for to see if they think they might have termites or not?
Okay, so the two most common things to look for in a house. Number one, for subterranean termites, you want to look for mud tubes.
Okay.
Generally speaking, subterranean termites come from the ground, and they have little mud-colored tubes, which is made up of excrement, basically, and carton material. And they use that to shelter them because they're very sensitive to moisture and heat. And so they can control their humidity by building these little moist mud tubes from the ground up into your house.
A lot of people think those are bees. Right? I mean, I know that you've had calls before where, like maybe in the rafters or on a fence.
Yep. They look like wasp nests sometimes, mud dauber wasp nests. So we've often had people say, well, I think it's just wasps. And then you look at it and it's actually coming from out of the wood. Yeah. And it's a subterranean termite swarming slit.
When you find that muddy looking thing, are there a million termites inside it?
There usually are. But what happens to termites is as soon as you disrupt it, like let's say you poked it with a stick.
Right.
the termites in that area send off a pheromone, which is called a distress pheromone.
Okay.
And it'll cause all the workers to scurry away and all the soldiers to run out and defend that hole.
Isn't that fascinating?
Because in their world, they're thinking they're defending against some type of insect that's invading, probably ants. So all the soldiers will get in there and they'll block that entrance with their hard heads so that even if they're killed, the ants can't get through the
well, what an interesting science that is. You've also mentioned in some of a lot of your commercials over the years something called FRES. What's that? And does that always mean termites?
Yeah. So the first part we talked about with the subterranean tubes. The second part is the FRES, and the FRES is basically the wood that's passed through a drywood termite.
I was going to say it came out the north end of the south moving termite. Right. it's going out the back door.
So what termites do is they actually they have something in the gut that digests cellulose. So they consume the cellulose, it gets digested in their gut, and then they poop out the frass, which is basically looks like dehydrated wood.
I was going to say used wood, dehydrated wood.
You can tell it's separate from beach sand, for example.
But it does appear to be sand, doesn't it?
It's about the same size as beach sand, actually, and almost the same color. It's normally the color of the resin content of the wood. So if it's like pine, frost, summer wood that's grown real quickly, it's going to be light colored.
Yeah, right.
If it's a mahogany or teak or koa, then it's typically that dark resin impregnated type of wood.
Some people try to tell you, Michael, oh yeah, don't worry about this. The termites don't like this. Is there any wood that they won't eat?
They don't prefer to eat wood that has a high resin content, like Purple Heart or koa.
All right.
But if that's all they've got, no problem. They'll eat it.
Yeah. Okay. So this is another myth is out the deal. Can the layperson tell what kind of termites they have, or do they need a pro for that?
Actually, there's a fairly easy way to tell, and you could do it with a 10x.
Don't say look under their wing for a birthmark.
Like a 10x lens, so like just a regular magnifying glass or a little hand lens. Yeah. And the key thing to look at is subterranean termite swarmers are different from drywood termite swarmers in that their wings have little hairs on them. So the drywood termite swarmer wings have this iridescent color to them, and they shine and reflect light, whereas the subterranean termites don't, because they have these little hairs on the wings which cause the light not to deflect, and so they don't look shiny.
Before we go to our first break, I know a lot of people these days go to Google or go to the internet to get information, and I know this can be good and this can be bad. Can you get a bad lesson from looking up something online and trying to treat it at home yourself?
You know, Mike, the internet is our new university.
Yeah,
if you think about technology today.
Yeah,
I mean, anyone out there has the ability to become an expert in pretty much anything.
Yep.
So I would say the more educated you are, the better. And yes, there's good information, there's bad information, but I think it's fantastic that people have the opportunity to learn as much as they can. I think it will only help them.
At sandwichisle.com. See, because a lot of people tell me on my regular radio show, I have no idea that you knew so much. And what they don't really know is that my producer's middle name is Google. I mean, there's nothing you can't find out. But I've also found out that every now and again I'll use the source, and I'll broadcast the source, and somebody with more knowledge on that subject call me up and say, "Boy, are you wrong? Here's the real deal." So I don't want people to necessarily self-diagnose and consider that that's all they had to do.
Yeah, I think we're talking about two different things. One thing is educate yourself. The second thing is get an expert opinion.
Yeah.
And so the Honolulu Board of Realtors, the Hawaii Pest Control Association, National Pest Control Association, all recommend that every structure is inspected annually for termites and termite areas. And so in Hawaii, if you're not inspecting your house annually, then you're making a mistake. And you can be as educated as you want, but you better have someone that's an expert come in and inspect it. Otherwise, you will be missing termites.
You know, that being said, Sandwich Isle Pest Solutions is the only organization here in Hawaii to have achieved this national recognition. What did it take to get the
Quality Pro,
endorsement by the national organization? What did you guys have to do?
Actually, Mike, we're not the only one. There's a couple of other companies that have got it now. We were the first one.
Oh, you're the first one.
And basically, it's a voluntary certification. It's more stringent than any federal or state certification, much more so than the Hawaii state certification. And what it does is it basically means that you hold yourself to a very, very high national standard, which is how you earn that certification. And there's various different things, including contracting, employee screening, salesmanship, advertising. Pretty much the entire way you conduct your business has to meet a certain standard. Everyone has to be certified. Everyone has to be drug tested. Everyone has to have criminal background checks, all this type of thing.
Yeah, and that's what you learn if you go online. And I want you to do that. As a matter of fact, now that you've learned a little bit about what today's program is, talking about drywood termites mostly, we're going to come back in just a minute and give you not only once you've identified what the problem is, but identify what some of the solutions are. All of that's coming up. The show is called What's Bugging You, brought to you by Sandwich Isle Pest Solutions. Find us online at sandwichisle.com or call 456-7716. More What's Bugging You right after this.
Hi, I'm Michael Botha, owner of Sandwich Isle Pest Solutions. Have you noticed little piles of brownish pellets under or around wooden frames or furniture? This may be drywood termite frass or droppings. The frass can be light to dark colored depending on what type of wood the termites are feeding on. Their presence may indicate an active termite infestation in the wood directly above the pile. If you are finding these pellets in your house, please call me today at 456-7716. We're here to help you.
Sandwich Isle Termite and Pest Control is the best.
Okay, welcome back. We're glad that we have you in captivity. This program, What's Bugging You, is being brought to you by Sandwich Isle Pest Solutions here on Oahu. They are in my opinion, clearly the leader. They've been doing my house, my wife and I, our home for over 15 years. And we've had issues and problems that have come up, whether they be termites or ants or bees. We had a horrible thing with carpenter bees not too long ago. Even rodents out in the yard that love some of the fruit. But the big meme at this time of the year, and that's why today's program is about drywood termites. We've had swarms in this year that are kind of record-setting, as you learned just a few minutes ago. But in this segment of the program, we want you to know that there are a whole lot of different treatments. And if the company that you've already talked to or done business in the past only does one thing, you might be shortchanging yourself. So, Michael, maybe we should have a little breakdown on, first of all, we've identified the problem. Does location have a matter? I mean, part of the island have a matter? And what learning process as a homeowner can I go through to learn what I probably want to be the treatment that I'm going to get?
So the key thing to consider that in Hawaii, and it doesn't matter which island you're on, we have subterranean termites, Formosan termites, and drywood termites. So there are a variety of treatments that you can choose. So let's start with drywood termites. So drywood termites, you have different options. You have either a partial treatment or spot treatment, or a whole house treatment.
Okay.
Or whole
spot treatment. You talk about somebody getting the medicine in a sprayer or something, or in like a suppository or whatever. Different ways to put it in.
For example, you could go to Lowe's and pick up termite or whatever it is off the shelf and find the little kick-out hole that the termite droppings came out of, squirt it in there, and just treat that one area. That's called a spot treatment.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that doesn't really work is because it's often not just one termite. And it's not just one colony. There's multiple colonies of termites. So in general, the most important thing to do is to have a complete inspection of the structure up front, because that will identify the various different species. You may have two different types that require different treatment strategies. Or it might just be localized to a piece of furniture, and that furniture might be able to be picked up, put in a truck, taken to a fumigation vault, fumigated, and brought back with no holes.
I know there's no real exact way to answer this next question, but obviously people call you, and all the time you go out there to assess the damage. And you must have some sort of an idea, because Michael Botha, by the way, he's done everything in the business because it was his fathers and grandfathers. He's been from the grunt, cleaning up the truck to the guy that's writing the checks at the end of the day. So I would imagine that you have a pretty good idea that your experts can spend an hour or half an hour at my house and pretty much give a pretty good idea what I got or what I need.
Generally speaking, inspection takes an hour to an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say you were to call me up and say, Mike, I saw some termites. Come check it out. So we'd arrive, would do a thorough inspection, inspect the attic, inspect around the inside of the house, the outside of the house, and try to identify what species of termites and then the degree of infestation. Mm-hmm. It might just be one small area, or it could be the entire house.
And that's why you use the credibility of the outfit, gang. That's what I want to tell you about. Because unlike some people that, if you take your car in and it's going clinkety-click and the guy says, well, you need tires and a new battery, we have to reupholster the thing. I mean, multiple jobs, but the most common fix that we've seen growing up here, me and many of us, is you drive by somebody's house and there's a big tent on it, and you say that is called whole home fumigation.
Yes.
Is that the most common? Is the preferred?
I would say that's the most in demand, because
is it the most effective?
It's 100% effective if done properly.
Oh,
it's 100% ineffective if it's not done properly.
Oh boy, yeah.
So you only have
Don't try this at home.
You only have one chance to get it right. Here's the key thing with tent fumigation: you envelop the entire structure in a gas-proof tent.
Yep.
You calculate a number of factors, including wind speed, seal of the tent, condition of the tent, the ground seal, temperature, humidity, and the exposure time. Mm-hmm. And you calculate that on the job. And it tells you how many ounces of gas
you need
how
much gas
cubic foot. So that is normally expressed in pounds per 1,000 cubic feet. And with that formula in hand, you go ahead and you measure the cylinder as you're shooting the gas. Let's say it's 25 pounds you have to shoot. You get the exact amount to the ounce and shoot it in there. You take an initial reading from a gas analyzing instrument, which will tell you that you've achieved your initial dosage goal. Mm-hmm. Once you've got that information, you're good. The next day when you come back out, assuming everything went fine, the tent didn't blow off, for example. Which is...
or a big old hole in it or something.
We've had some vandalization where people come and try and break in and slash all your tent. But assuming everything goes well, the next morning the crew shows up and they take another reading, which is called a terminal reading, and they see that they've achieved their terminal reading dosage goals. So now you've got your initial dosage goals you achieved and your terminal. You can be confident you have 100% success. You can take that tent off and you're good to go.
One thing that I really like about this is there's some side benefits. It gets rid of some other critters. I mean, what we're really doing is we're doing a termite treatment, but the medicine does a number of other things. I think you said something that's kind of important, that you have to know the dosage and all of that kind of stuff. And I do know that the quality of the tent, the time that it gets put up. Are there some times when a home can't have a tent? We heard in construction a while ago, there were some roofs that were a real problem. Maybe not for the tent, but they couldn't take the guys up on the roof walking around with the tent.
There still are a problem. For example, Spanish tile roofs.
Dangerous, huh?
Semwood. Semwood's the absolute worst. You just look at the tiles and they break. And certain types of Monea tile. Or sometimes people have a huge array of solar panels. That's something that's really
we've got to talk about that too.
Some people have
PV
half the house's solar panels. And so you don't want to put, tents that might weigh a couple of 100 pounds over that, because if it gets windy, it could damage it. So yes, and then the other part is landscaping, or perhaps a zero lot line, where you don't have permission of the neighbor to actually fumigate. So there's definitely a need for other alternatives. And so whole house borate treatment is extremely effective.
Now, you mentioned that earlier. And I remember from back in the days of 20 Mule Team Borax, and I got this thing in my mind.
That's where it's from.
And borate, from what I understand, is another, it's been around for a long time, but it's only recently been determined how effective it can be. What sort of a home would indicate it should have borate treatment?
Oh, well, let's just talk about borate for a second. Yeah. So it is from the Mule Team.
20 Mule Team Borax.
From California, from US Borax Company. Disodium tetrahydrate octaborate is the name of the product.
Oh, way too complicated. Borate's much easier. Yeah.
But basically what it is, it's an inorganic molecule. It means that it does not have the carbon molecule in it.
Okay.
That means that it never breaks down. So boric acid used in pest control today is basically imagine this, it's a ground up rock of a certain granular size that can be mixed in a solution with water so that it's suspended in water, and it is applied to the surface of the wood either as a foam or a liquid or a spray or even a vapor, and it gets soaked through the surface of the wood or gets injected deep into the wood. It's a fantastic product. It lasts for the life of the wood.
Wow, that's really
fantastic. Great. But it's expensive because it's extremely tedious to do that job.
Yeah, but you know what I do on my regular show? I do this all the time. Do the math. I mean, what's expensive? It's like, what do you want? See me now or see me later?
And that's it. You don't have to see you later because that leaves a residue. So that's one of the few products that you can use to actually use a residue. So, for example, when we tent fumigate a house, we borate treat the attic for free. And the reason we do that...
Let's talk about the reason for that. Look, gang, I got good news and bad news, okay? Good news is Sandwich Isle, they're the real guys. They can really do it. Bad news is that the tenting is good until the day you take the tent off.
That's exactly right.
So you borate the attic to save me, so that I have peace of mind knowing I'm not going to have, at least for sure, any termites up there for a long time.
The market expectation in Hawaii is to have a 5-year warranty on a tent fumigation.
Yeah.
And so we offer that.
Yep.
But we tell people right up front, look, the tent fumigation, like you said, once the tent comes off and the gas dissipates, there is no residue. Yeah. So you will get termites that come back.
But you've killed the adults and you killed the babies in that house.
And the eggs.
Yeah.
And so everything is dead.
But a new swarm the day after tomorrow, they don't know that you've even been there.
They're going to come back. It's not that same colony is coming back. A new colony is going to move in. So we actually have, for 18 years now, we've been dusting attics for free after every fumigation because we know that when they come back, they're most likely to go in the attic
up there,
and we're going to kill them.
Yeah.
And for the cost for us to do it for free, it's much cheaper than going back for multiple service calls down the road if new infestations do come in. And so,
that being said, I think it's important during this the treatment options is that there's a rule of thumb. As you know, my wife's a realtor, and almost always when she's taking a listing, she wants to find out when the last tenting was done. And then everybody knows that there's going to be an inspection and usually a tenting when the ownership passes on. So the new guy going in thinks he's good for 10 years, but he's really not. I mean, in a best case scenario, he would be. But in actual fact, homeowners, you have to take responsibility of checking it out.
That's right. I mean, the average house in Hawaii gets tented every 7 to 8 years.
Yeah.
So we have a huge client base, and we tent them about, our clients on average, 7 to 8 years. And that's not because they don't have termites every year. They have termites after the fumigation. The next swarm that they have termites again. And it just is that they don't show themselves, and the colonies don't get to the point where they're causing damage for about 5 years.
Okay, there's going to be some people, Michael, that say, well, look, if that's the case, why am I even doing this? I mean, aren't I just delaying the inevitable? But maybe you can explain, if you've got a full-blown infestation where your house is really a hotel for termites, they're doing so much damage that the once every 7 or 8 years would have prevented all that damage.
So I have a great example.
I bet. Oh, boy, I bet.
So Midway Atoll National Wildlife Refuge had never, because there's so many endangered species, you name it.
No chemicals, right?
Every type of
everything.
Marine seabird that nests. There's literally birds every 2 square feet, endangered seabirds.
Wow.
And so there'd never, ever been any termite control. So 10 years ago, I get a call from a desperate man who's the island manager, and he said, listen, my wife just fell through from our second floor to the ground floor.
Oh, my
She was walking down the stairs and fell straight through the stairs.
Smokes.
And this is a true story. So he's like, I need your help. We've got a major problem out here. We've never, ever treated any of these buildings since they were built. So we go out there and go check it out. So what was left?
Anything left?
And there were termites literally holding hands from the very top of every single building to the very bottom.
Yeah.
And so we saw the scenario from every type of Formosan termites and Drywood termites, completely infesting every building, top to bottom.
Yeah.
We tent fumigated and we used Centricon, actually. It's a termite bait. And after 3 years, we had completely wiped out every ground termite in the entire town area because we had thousands of stations. There wasn't a single hit. And we had as many as like 70% of the stations hit on the first go around.
Did those termites have anywhere to go if they swarmed? I mean, were they already occupying all the wood on the island?
There's a forest on the island, and a forest of ironwood trees, and so they were actually living in the trees
Eating
and
the
swarming.
trees.
And so we've actually fumigated it twice now, and we're about to go back for our third time because it's not that it failed; it's because that the termites constantly reinfest.
Someday, when we have the opportunity to talk to Michael about those trips, we'll talk to him about some pretty unique fishing opportunities there in that part of the world.
Yeah, we got 5 world records out there.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Every fish is a world record. So that's not difficult.
And that's and what we're talking about is IGFA world records on certain class stuff, just because location, right? The fish are there. Yeah,
everyone loves ulua over here.
Yeah.
And over there, you can see schools of ulua that are in the 140 to 160 pound, cruising the beach, close enough so you can fly cast to them from the sand.
Oh boy. Okay, I'll do the next borate treatment down there. Okay, that's the case. There's been the big buzz around, and I know it comes in and out of favoritism, and that is heat treatment, because I understand that the heat treatment at a certain temperature, you can pretty much guarantee that you kill them, but it's a pretty high temperature. What if any, risks are there?
That's a great question to ask, what the risks are. And here's the situation with heat. Heat absolutely works. At 117 degrees Fahrenheit, all life stages of insects, eggs, larvae, pupa, adults, are all going to be killed.
Okay, let's. I want to tell you this. I know this from our construction guys. If you have a regular home in Hawaii, it's quite possible that the temperature in the summer in your attic, if you don't have heat exhaustion or a gable end or something, can approach that heat, but not quite get there. It can be 100 or maybe 105. But what you're talking about is the heat treatment that you would do is even higher than the hottest day.
So that is sustained heat for 3 hours.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the challenge with heat, and here's why we actually don't do much of it anymore for Drywood termites.
I was going to say, don't leave your DVDs or your CDs out on the table.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The big issue is how do you get it? So how do you get a 10-inch by 24-inch beam to heat up to 117 degrees in the middle where the termites are?
No kidding.
What you have to do is you have to have the ambient temperature much higher, maybe 150 degrees.
Wow.
For an extended period of time.
When does stuff start burning?
Well, you can start getting all kinds of damage at 110 degrees.
Yeah.
And so we've seen, wax coatings or certain finishes, especially on teak furniture from Indonesia, that just melts off. It's like paraffin wax type finishes.
Okay, we'll go back and highlight some of that. I know there still are certain applications for it, but the big buzz in the industry, in your industry, and I know something that you guys are really cutting edge leaders on, is this stuff called orange oil.
Yes.
And from what I understand, there's some properties about that are pretty attractive. What application would be indicative for that treatment?
So orange oil basically is D-limonene at 95%. So D-limonene is actually used in those citrus candles.
Sure.
It's the same
like
active
citronella
ingredient.
or whatever.
It's citronella, exactly. It's the same type of thing. It's just that the purity of this particular brand of orange oil is so pure that it allows for the capillary movement of that oil through the wood. So it actually migrates through the wood and gets to the termites. Even if it doesn't get injected into the gallery, it actually migrates through the wood, through the grains of wood, and get to the termites. So it's
Michael, when you're sick, you're going to have tea with lemon in it, right? This is not a good thing for termites. For some reason, the citric acid or something must be, really bad for them, but it's good for us. So in other words, is that poisonous?
Actually, it's so you're talking about orange juice, and this is a derivative from the skin of the orange. You ever bite into the orange and you get that like bitter, bitter taste?
When they say that you use the zest, right, when you're cooking.
That's it. Okay.
Orange zest.
So
this is very zestful.
It's like a zestful times 10. So it's basically it's that D-limonene extract.
Okay.
At a very high
concentration
active ingredient. Yeah. And basically it's an organic material. And it's an essential oil.
Nonetheless, do you have to be careful when you're handling it, Ken?
Yes.
I mean, if it's that concentrated, it must be pretty strong.
It is. It's 95%.
Yeah.
And so it is strong, and it's not highly toxic to humans, but you do have to take care that you don't breathe in the vapors, and that you don't have the acidic oil on you because it'll burn.
Wow. So care is required. Don't try this at home. Another reason why, you got to go to sandwichisle.com or call them up at 775-456-7716. We're going to return to this spot treatment thing in a minute. But there's something else. I actually had a Chinese antique that I brought down to Sandwich Isles once years back because it had termites, and I didn't want to have the wood removed and replaced. I was worried about the finish. I wanted to keep it intact. And so Michael had me bring it down there. And I know that this has grown immensely in popularity. How do you determine, say, for instance, I bring in an old bass guitar that's an antique, and I want it to be fumigated. Is it based on square footage? I mean, what are the charges in the fumigation vault based on?
Yeah, it's based on cubic footage. So fumigation is based on how many ounces of gas you need per cubic foot. So we base it on size.
Yeah, and by the way, the size of this, my thing went in there with a bunch of other stuff, and I thought, well, I don't want to get my stuff contagious. Everything in there is going to get gas, and everything's going to die.
Yeah, often we have powder post beetles too.
Yeah.
And so that you have to fumigate at the 10x rate. And so, sometimes we have Drywood termite goods in the same fumigation chamber as a powder post beetle, and then we apply a 10x rate, 10 times the rate that you use for Drywood termites. But the truth is, when you do a fumigation properly, it's 100% effective. It's like a mini science experiment each time, because you're measuring that you've achieved your dosage goals up front. You measure that you achieve your dosage goals at the end, and it's scientific. It's very,
okay.
very
I only have one negative attitude here, because what you said earlier, if I tent my house, that 2 days after the tent's removed, if there's termites in the area, they're coming back in. Okay, what about this stuff that I bring down and get, gassed in the chamber? Obviously, I'm doing that because maybe, I said off the air to Michael, by the way, folks, those of us, maybe you collect stuff. Maybe you bought a coal grandfather clock, and it's got some pukas in it. You want to make sure that you don't bring bugs to your home. So you bring it right down there and get it fumigated. It's still susceptible for infestation, but at least you've stopped and got rid of what was there. Is that correct?
Susceptible to reinfestation.
Yeah.
That means that if you had termites in your house when you brought that back, and they swarmed, and then they got into that, there's no residue whatsoever. So that's one of the beauties about fumigation, though, because when you fumigate a house, when you come back in your house, you don't have to wash the sheets, wash the plates, clean the knives and forks. You don't have to do anything. It's basically we come in with a gas analyzing instrument, make sure it's less than whatever the dosage goal is, and you walk in and you clear it. No preparation.
Michael, that's one thing that's extremely important, because I do know that people say, I don't want to do that, so much trouble. I know that there's a checklist and there's a certain things you do to protect your home. Particularly, let's talk about cooking utensils and the kitchen.
Yeah, so for a termite application, fumigation, there's no necessary preparation requirements except for food or anything that's living. So, for example, if you have a fish in a fish tank, that's got to go. If you have any food...
Unless you can plan on eating it anyway. I'm kidding.
There you go. If you have food in a can or in something that has its original seal, for example, a bottle of wine that's not been opened is fine. But if that bottle of wine's been opened, then it has to be removed or bagged. And so we have these things called Nilo fume bags. And basically, they're 6 mil bags, and you double bag everything that you want to keep in there. So you can keep everything in your fridge or freezer if you want to. You just have to have it in bags inside the fridge or freezer. Yeah,
because typically when the home is gassed, is my refrigerator door opened? Or is it just going to get in there anyway?
No, the refrigerator is kept closed. Because a lot of people think a refrigerator is airtight. It's really not.
Oh, no, because there's a motor.
Oh, yeah.
And that motor is making the air cold, cycling it through and cycling it out.
Yeah, we did an interesting research job on a commodity. We had this container filled with corn, and we wanted to see how quickly the gas reached equilibrium, which means an equal part of gas per every space within that container. So imagine a giant 20-foot container filled with corn in 2,000-pound bags from the top to the bottom. And what we did is we measured every single foot vertically and every single foot around the perimeter,
so that it was complete.
So we had a measurement, and we took a measurement every 10 minutes, and in 28 minutes we had 100% equilibrium in a 20-foot container filled with corn. I don't know how many tons of corn. Right. And so it went through those bags of corn like they didn't even exist.
That's very amazing. Okay, take a short little break. When we come back, now that we've talked about some of the treatment options there are, now we're going to, when we come back real quickly, spend some time on what you consider to determine that treatment option. Now that you know what they are, which one is going to work in your house? More coming up on What's Bugging You right after this.
Hi, I'm Michael Botha, owner of Sandwich Isle Pest Solutions. You may have noticed that termite swarming season has just begun. Termite swarms usually begin after sundown on warm, humid, and still evenings when the wind is less than 2 miles per hour. You don't have to see a swarm to have an infestation. If your home has not been inspected in the past year, or if you think you may have termites, please call me today at 456-7716. We're here to help you.
Sandwich Isle Termite and Pest Control is the best.
Okay, now, one of the things that Michael Botha, the owner of Sandwich Isle Pest Solutions, and I have been talking about today on What's Bugging You, are these ground termites. We've Drywood termites, I should say. And what we've already covered was, what are they? Sort of how much they cost us as homeowners in the society. And then we found out a little bit, how do you sort of look at what treatment options there are? And now it's down to the where the rubber hits the road, Michael, and that is the decision-making process and comparing the different options as to what I'm going to do at my house in this neighborhood for this particular infestation.
So I think the first thing you need to consider is the degree of infestation. Mm-hmm. So let's say I came out to your house, Mike, and you had one little gathering of droppings underneath a piece of wood, maybe a table leg.
Okay.
It wasn't attached to anything else. It was sitting on a concrete floor. In that case, it's a very limited infestation. Mm-hmm. There's no need to get worried about it. You could either take that table leg off and fumigate it, or you could simply drill and inject that with orange oil, for example.
So, and by the way, if rank and file furniture, like a bunk bed or, a bench on your line, no problem. I mean, it's easy to do this.
Just pick it up and move it. There's no need to fumigate your whole house.
Yeah.
Just take that removable part. So often we even have doors. Like we might have an apartment building that all the infestation is in the doors. Mm-hmm. And maybe the doors came infested and they put them in from the manufacturer.
Of course, yeah.
And they were infested. Instead of fumigating the whole building, you just take all the doors out, fumigate those, and put them back in again. Without
casting any dispersions, I do know that there's a big concern of buying stuff like plywood from China because there are some problems with the resin and the glues and some other stuff. It's often said that a lot of people like these Balinese and Indonesian, tables and furniture and doors. That part of the world, Formosa, it's kind of close to Formosa, right?
Powder post beetles, bamboo shot hole borer, serum biscuit borer. There's a whole bunch of different hardwood wood-destroying insects that come from those areas. And so my advice would be when you buy something that's an antique from Asia,
sure,
because of the potential of bringing those into your house and then they infest your house.
I'm shipping it to you.
Ship it in there. I'm
shipping over Sandwich Isle.
Get it fumigated in a chamber at 10x, because when you have to fumigate your entire house at 10 times the rate of Drywood termites, it's 10 times more expensive.
I want to make sure that people understand that. When we talk about these different things to consider on the treatment comparisons, you mentioned early in the piece that your experts are going to determine the magnitude of the infestation to determine how much chemical, and therefore determine what my chemical charges are going to be.
That's right. So in fumigation, for example, the big difference is, and we often have this, people bring in recycled wood, and off the radio, Mike, you and I were talking, my wife goes to the green waste dump and picks up recycled wood, logs, and then she chainsaws them and makes all kinds of furniture out of them. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing she does is she brings them to our chamber and fumigates them, because what happens is you get powder post beetles inside your house.
She knows the boss, by the way. She knows the boss.
I give her a special deal. But once you get those some of these beetles into your structure, that is unbelievably expensive to resolve, because now they're in your entire structure and you have to use such a higher dosage to kill them.
Yeah. He doesn't know, but after our program is finished today, I'm going to show him something in my office, a beautiful old antique that belongs to our company. Had termites get into the wood base it was mounted on, and it's just like it's weaker than paper. I mean, the amount of damage is unbelievable. Okay, let's make sure people sort of get this. The things that determine the treatment option, because I know that a lot of customers know as much as they need to know, but your people are expert. Once you guys come out, he's going to make a strong recommendation for a specific type of treatment because.
So the key thing, Mike, I want to just point out is what's maybe different about our company is that we offer all of the solutions. Mm-hmm. We don't just offer 10 fumigations.
That's a great point. In other words, the end result is you
get what you want.
Exactly.
Basically, the customer has every option. So it's not just orange oil. We offer orange oil, fumigation, borate, terminal dry spot treatments, pickup and delivery to a fumigation chamber. So whatever it is. So for example, let's say you're a single family home versus an apartment. In an apartment, you might have a termite problem, but you won't be able to tent it because one of the neighbors doesn't want to get tented.
Sure.
Well, there's an option.
Sure.
You can go orange oil or borate, or you can go spot treatment. If you're a single family home, freestanding, and you have a Drywood termite infestation, it may make more sense to tent fumigate it. So each structure, the way it's set up, the person's needs. Some people are happy to live with termites because maybe they don't have enough money or they don't have it in their budget to spend.
That's really a good point. This has always been a point that the folks from Sandwich Isle have to assess a number of things. And I do know that sometimes when you get to your first interaction with a new customer, that they may be a disaster. I mean, they may really need a lot of help. But I also notice that one of the things you do is sit down and say, okay, to prevent this from ever getting this bad again, here's a few hints going forward. Let's talk about management and some of the monthly and some of the inspections and some of the treatment that you're going to do after you solve this current problem.
Okay, so the most important thing with termites is an annual inspection. I keep saying that over and over. Yep. An annual inspection is necessary. Now, we have some homes, one home's worth probably close to $30 million, and we do a quarter every 3 months.
Listen, if I had that kind of money in that house, every couple of weeks I'd be saying, am I still okay?
That's right. And it's just because the value of that house is so great and the value of the artifacts within that house are so great that they can't afford any damage. And so, because it'll be so extraordinarily expensive. So, depending on your needs, but at very least, once per year, you should have a termite inspection. If you don't have subterranean termite protection on Oahu, you're going to have subterranean termites. That's all there is.
That's, you know what? So, unfortunately, gang, at least Michael tells it like it is. I mean, there's no romance in this. And then the other thing is, what about when you see a swarm and say, let's get out of here. They're swarming tonight. Let's go have a drink. Let's go have dinner. You really want to stick around and see what they're doing.
Well, I like that idea. I always tell my wife, let's go, let's not cook dinner, let's head out to a restaurant tonight. But the best thing to do is make sure your screens are closed before you leave.
There you go. Yeah.
And I think most
lights
of us,
are off, screens are closed.
Most of us live with doors open in Hawaii, and we might use our screens, but I mean, definitely have your screens in good condition because swarmers will get in.
We did get one email that I want to ask you about, and this is something very important about tenting. This says, please ask Mr. Botha about pets, particularly if a yard is going to be tented. If a house is going to be tented, do we have to remove the animals? Obviously, you're not going to have an animal in the house, but wouldn't it also be a good idea for a day or two to have the animals outside, not around, because they could either chew a hole in the tent or could they get sick?
Yeah, they're not going to get sick from being outside, but what I always tell people is you definitely should secure the animals. If they have to stay in the yard, if it's a big enough yard, you could probably put up a small portable kennel or something on the one side of the yard and keep them away. But what happens is, especially with cats and even certain dogs that live inside, they'll try and get inside.
Oh yeah, they can't understand. Hey, what do you mean I can't come inside?
Yeah, and
it's my house.
When you're covering a tent, let's say there's 4 guys working on the job, you might have 2 guys on the roof and 2 on the other side. They can't see if an animal's coming inside the structure into the crawl space whilst we're covering it. So we always encourage homeowners to take care of their pets, take them off the property, or at the very least secure them on the property so there's no way they can get in.
I've already determined today that Michael doesn't know I've done the math, and I'm way past due for tenting. So I'm going to this is going to be a weekend of pleasure for my dogs. Because they're going to go to the vet, they're going to get shampooed, their nails clipped, they're going to get pampered, they're going to get massaged. Because I'm not worried about them because they're smart enough. They smell that stuff, they're out of there. But I don't want Nalo to decide that he wants his fuzzy toy that's in the bathroom because he knows where it is.
Yeah, pets are unpredictable, and when you put them under stress, I mean, it's a stressful situation for them. When you tent fumigating your house, you've got these strange people, you've got a strange vehicle in the driveway, you've got this strange tarpaulin hanging over the house. And, a lot of pets act differently, and so I would definitely say, control your pets.
I just had this horrible thought, especially if Tabby Cat favorite hiding place is in the closet, the shoe closet.
Yeah.
And she runs in there during that. Let's talk about that as a warning. I mean, is that a problem?
I'll tell you how it's happened before.
Yeah.
So we've had that situation. We tented a house, and we got a call a few hours later. We only finished covering it right at sundown. And almost immediately we got a call from the owner saying, listen, I can't find my cat. I forgot to take it out. I thought my son had taken it. But anyway, long story short, the cat is nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
So the woman goes back to the house and she hears meowing on the inside.
Oh, boy.
And so we said, well, you don't go in there because it's poisonous gas.
Mm-hmm.
And so
what about the cat?
So bear in mind, we've got tear gas which is a warning agent to keep people out, as well as the sulfurfluoride. So we showed up. We had to don SCBAs, self-contained breathing apparatus,
hazmat clothes, right?
Which is basically, for us, it's a deadly situation, because if for any reason any of that gas gets through our SCBAs, we're done.
Yeah.
And so myself and the fumigation manager had to go in and get the cat. And he actually got it, and he got really, really badly scratched up because it wouldn't leave.
Yeah.
And so we were able to get it, but it tore him up really bad. And, the whole thing was a nightmare. We had to redo the job because we had opened it up and all the gas came out.
But there's another concern, Michael, and this is really, I think it's almost funny. You hear about these people that get electrocuted when they're trying to steal a copper wire out of the pole. I know that some people think, well, that house is being tenanted. We're going to go in there and get that stuff. This is really a bad thing. And I know that nationally, that this is it called, you can die. I mean, I don't know how much that TV is worth that you think you're going to get out of that house, but it's worth going in there.
It's absolutely amazing to me that people would be that stupid as to do that. But here's the good news. We have a program just for people like that. And it's called our Fume Guard program. So we have alarm sensors inside the house.
I was going to say, wait a minute. This is what life and opportunistic bad guys have caused. You have a whole area of a blanket of protection for the house that's being fumigated.
As a matter of fact, we're about to get our guard agency license, so we can start selling security guard services as a result of this, because we got so deep into it. So basically we have a pressure sensored alarm, a motion sensored alarm inside the house. The strobe goes off. It automatically calls the police without them knowing it. So it's a modem that's activated, calls the manager on duty, and it calls the police and says this is the location of the place. It has a GPS enable, so it gives the exact location. So within seconds of someone breaking in, if they have the Fume Guard program, it'll notify the police, it'll notify us, and we'll show up. And
hasn't that been wonderful development? I mean, you and I, Michael and I have known each other for years. We're constantly amazed at how we take technology, usually developed for a military purpose, that comes down, and we talk as fishermen, how you can have a GPS in your boat and go back to your kumu hole 5 years later. But in actual fact, it's become part of a security blanket that companies like yours use in servicing their clients. And not everybody has that.
No, not everyone has it. I mean, we basically got involved on a national level. We reached out to every fumigation company across the country and said, listen, are you guys having this problem? Those of them that were having the problem, Miami and LA being two main areas, and San Diego, we got together with the leaders of those companies and said, okay, well, let's do some research, find out what alarm technology exists. And this actually comes from Florida.
These companies that Michael's talking about, you go to the manufacturer of the equipment and say, we represent 1,500 pest companies in the country. What are you going to do for us? How are you going to help us be able to protect our clients' property and not kill us financially so that we don't have to pass along a big number to our customer?
No, it's amazing. I mean, the things that we got right now, the device is shotgun proof. You can actually shoot it with a shotgun and it still won't turn off. And it'll still keep calling the police.
Hey, baboos, if you're out there thinking you're going to follow the sandwich aisle truck around, forget about it. We got you covered. The good news is, anecdotally, we could tell stories all day, Michael, about the funny stuff. But I think the takeaway that I want people to understand is that, to reiterate, underline, highlight, and italicize in bold print, annual inspections.
Okay. Annual inspection, number one. If you're not doing it, you're going to have termites and you're going to have damage. Resign yourself to that fact. Be vigilant. The best inspector for your property is you.
Of course.
You live there. You know if anything's out of place. Look out for blistering paint, pellets, mud tubes, anything strange. When you see that, act immediately. Get a professional out there to do an inspection, and don't delay on the treatment. Some of the worst damage I see is people that get so busy. All of us are busy. They get the proposal to do the 10 fumigation, whatever. They forget about it. They get caught up in life. A year later, they get back to do it. Now they've got major damage. They've got a leaking roof, all sorts of problems.
Okay, let's get a 4x4, 20 feet long, and put it on your shoulder and walk out of City Mill. That's 1 day's worth, or how much? How much wood can be consumed by termites in a house that's just going nuts?
Formosan termites have been proven to eat 4 pounds per day.
Jeez.
So that's
do the
basically
math,
like the inside door jam of a pre-hung door.
I'm telling you, folks, you just got to be, you just have to be proactive. It's the biggest investment we ever make. And when you think of the amount of money that it costs, not only to get it tented every 6, 7, 8 years, whatever it is, but I understand, as a parting thing, will give a customized estimate to somebody to get on a maintenance program or a vigilance treatment. I love my Centricon. Let's talk about that 1 minute.
Yeah, Centricon's fantastic. Basically, it's an early warning detection system and a control system all in one. And so you have the peace of mind knowing that you have something out there protecting your house, actively protecting it, and preventing the damage that you just don't want to have.
There you go. So that's what's bugging you for this time. Thanks, Michael Botha, for being here, and thank you for listening. We'll see you again next time. You want to give us a call at Sandwich Isle Pest Solutions? No problem. 456-7716 or sandwichisle.com. And we'll see you next time. And by the way, don't be afraid, because we got you covered. Thanks for listening. Tell your friends.
That's our show for today. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. And in the meantime, jump online and find more at sandwichisle.com. That's sandwichisle.com.